exposure to different levels of knowledge.
Yeah,
Okay?
no, I didn't know that was new. So public universities.
It wasn't new because a lot of liberal arts colleges have this, kind of theme. I mean, that's classic for many liberal arts colleges. But it was, in terms of a public university, it was different. It was definitely different, yeah.
Where did you go as an undergraduate?
I finished my undergraduate degree at University of Michigan, and then the graduate work was done at UW-Madison, master's degree and then a PhD. Traditional, very traditional program.
So at University of Michigan, when you went there as an undergraduate, you was pure sciences, or?
Yeah, it was in the School of Natural Resources, and it was a narrow-focused program. At that time, you're a fairly young person, and you don't fully understand, what the contrast might be. Well, what are the other options for getting an undergraduate degree, and where would you go? And I chose that because I was interested in a fisheries type program, and there was a good program there, and so we ended up there. I don't know how my parents afforded to get me there, but we made it for a couple of years anyway.
Okay. Ed Weiner, did he know much about sciences and the environment? He was a political scientist, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Maybe tell me your impressions of the memories.
He learned very quickly, I'd have to say, about the environmental science part of it, because that's mostly where we interacted with him. And I was chairman of the university committee on a couple of different occasions, and so we had different opportunities to interact. And so he didn't understand all of the environmental science that we were doing, but he understood some of it, and he got to be quite a birder, as you might know, and when he retired in 1986, I made mention of that at the celebration that was conducted downtown Green Bay, that he calls him, that he may have had a degree as a political scientist, but we always felt he was a pretty good biologist as well. So Ed Widener, his heritage was greatly in excess of what we thought it was going to be. In other words, after he left, we recognized that he was a strong force in the development of this campus. And I just came to have so much respect for the man. He was a tough guy to work for because he had strong demands, and he liked to control things, which was probably good because we needed to have a strong hand at the helm at that time in those early years. And he mellowed, toward the end. He wasn't quite as demanding and controlling. Things were going along pretty well. He fought hard with Madison over budget issues, and we didn't know about a whole lot of that really, but that wore down on Ed Widener ultimately, because he was still promoting this special mission and things of this sort. So,
well, those things he was maybe seemed over controlling. Obviously, something he felt very strongly about. What were those things that he wanted to make sure weren't lost?
I'd say the environmental focus was one. He could see that this was something unique, and he expected it to be applied across all dimensions of the university, not just in the sciences, but in the social sciences and the humanities and so on. And there was opposition from some sectors of the university. Now, in the sciences, the ecologists and soil scientists, people and so on, we were delighted to have that kind of support, because that's what we would normally would do. You know, ecology was probably an interdisciplinary field well before its time, but nobody paid much attention to it or had to run that up the flagpole, you see. It just was something that you did. And because if you're doing a study on the algae in Green Bay or whatnot, you need to be dealing with a chemist who can understand some of the reactions that are going on with phosphorus and sediment and all these different components, you know, of the ecosystem. So he worked very hard to sustain that, and finally, you know, some components, I'd have to say, I can't be too specific about this, but other parts of the university began to do that. And he would provide these little incentives. You know, he said, "I know I've got some money, and if you want to develop a travel course or whatnot that has something about comparing the environment of urban center in London with that of Green Bay or something to that sort," he said, "You know, I'll fund it." So he kept the budget pretty close to his chest, and he controlled things in that respect. But as I say, without that strong hand, I'm not sure if the campus would have developed as quickly as it did in that direction. Because we had to do this, you know, within a period of, you know, 5 years. We had to get a lot of things in place. Some of the things we tried didn't work, and some of the things did. But, you know, we were working in an area that we had no experience ourselves, and nobody else had ever tried any of this either. So
let's talk about some of those things that worked and things that didn't.
Well, the LES program, Liberal Arts Seminars program, was one that it's hard to say if you call it a failure or if it was just a dissatisfaction or if people were frustrated with it, but you had each of 4 years you had to be involved in some component of the liberal arts program, liberal arts seminar program, LES. And then it was called university seminars, and, you know, so there were things that were starting to change along the way. And ultimately then it came down, well, we'd have the freshman level course, and those were courses that were really quite different in terms of the topics they focused on. I taught a section for a while that was based on Alvin Toffler's book called Future Shock, and we did the whole readings in there and everything else, and, you know, that was pretty, you wouldn't be doing that kind of thing in other traditional universities, see.
Why you were talking about the future of society?
Yeah, future shock, how quickly society is changing, and how quickly the economic structure is changing, and how quickly perceptions of good environment and bad environment, you know, were changing, and the evolutionary process of the human organism was changing far faster than the evolutionary processes on the natural flora and fauna, and it's a function of education, and it's a function of the kind of cultural changes that were going on. So
what surprises me, or like I just have questions about, is you said that wasn't taught in other places.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone could focus on that theme, you know, in a freshman seminar. There were modules of 6 weeks, and you'd pair up with another person who was taking a different kind of module in the rest of that semester, you know, for example. And I think it was a little more successful in the social sciences and humanities maybe than it was in the sciences, but there might be some different perceptions about that. But ultimately the sophomore and junior experience was cut out for a variety of reasons, and I don't understand them all. The sophomore experience was supposed to be a local thing where the students got out into the community and and learned and did some service work and created, information bases that will help solve this problem or that problem. The junior one was supposed to be a foreign travel experience, and that one was the toughest to maintain because it was expensive, and budgets get tighter, and you can't ask necessarily the students to pay for that kind of an experience either. So the senior seminar persisted, and that probably persisted the longest, now that I think about it. And I don't know where it is at this stage actually anymore, but because that was where you could, at the end, presumably at the end of your 4-year program is when you would take this senior seminar, and it's interdisciplinary group, and you were focusing on different issues that could have been science-based about the future of the environment, or it could be some kind of cultural thing dealing with urban decline and so on and so forth. Depends on the faculty member.